Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Knowledge Panel, episode 3. And this one's going to be about how is AI reshaping SEO. So I've got two great people with me. I've got Dawn Anderson. Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
And Mike King. Hi, Mike.
Hey.
Okay, unfortunately, we didn't get Debdut had a family emergency, and also in the background we've got my absolute star, which is David. Hi, David.
Hovering away here. Hi, Dixon. How you doing?
There we go. He tries to hide in the background, but we don't let him do that very much, especially when there's only 3 of us on there. So, right, we've got a couple of buttons that we need to press because this is all streaming over various places, and until we've got it all, we've just got to. If you want to see us on Twitter, you can. So if you want to see the go to @inlinks on Twitter. And you should be able to see us there. And David will probably be picking up some questions and answers from there. You can also see us on YouTube if that's your fancy, and on Facebook, and goodness knows where else. So. Okay, right. I just managed to put myself talking to myself. Have I done something wrong there, David?
No, not at all. When you try and watch yourself on YouTube or on Facebook, then the audio plays by default. So you just have to make sure you mute yourself if you're watching yourself, because there's always going to be a bit of a delay going on.
Yeah, all right, okay. So after doing this for nearly a year in different things, I've managed to completely screw it up, which is pretty much bog standard for when you just get a bit blasé, guys. So anyway, but thanks ever so much for coming in, guys. And we're going to be going for around about 40 minutes. The machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's just getting more and more into our lives. We can talk about the whether it's ethically good or ethically bad, and all sorts of bits and pieces. But I wanted to start with AI, and is it really just a new thing, or have we got 1,000 other things that were all AI before this? So, for example, I mean, the PageRank algorithm is a form of machine learning. I think one of you's got the Twitter browser open, and that's where it's talking.
Not me.
Not me.
Or maybe it's Mike's little one. Maybe it's Mike's little one.
Could be.
It's human. Okay. So, basically, question number one, hasn't machine learning and AI been around for so long, ever since the web started? And isn't PageRank a form of machine learning because it iterates and improves its scores?
Well, look, do you want me to start?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, PageRank in itself isn't machine learning. Learning to rank is machine learning, which takes all the data from various sources, including obviously things like PageRank. Machine learning is all around us. Every recommender system out there has progressive improvements using things like bandit algorithms. Anybody that uses Spotify, anybody that uses Netflix, it's way outside of search as we know it. Anybody that uses Amazon, anybody that, Amazon are absolutely killing it actually with things like machine learning. And every time you make an inquiry to your bank, they'll be using some kind of machine learning. You go everywhere, anywhere on any recruitment site now in IT, and it's all data science. So
right.
ultimately, they're all around us.
It's still a sort of more modern iteration of so PageRank is still a machine learning algorithm. Yeah. Surely, it's getting more sophisticated.
Things added to the mix, yeah, of course. When you start to add all the other algorithms in there together with it, everything works together. But I remember, I'll stop speaking in a minute.
It's all right.
Else have a go. I remember speaking to a chap a couple of years ago when I went to an IR conference, and we sat at lunchtime, and he said he speaks to a lot of because he actually works in forensic detection of authors using machine learning, basically.
Okay.
And he's been in the field for quite a few years, and he said he was chatting to somebody who's been in IR for like forever, and this guy said to him, you know, we've been progressing slowly, and then all of a sudden machine learning comes along and it literally has thrown everything out of the water that we've known and taken it forward.
Okay.
In terms of progress, 20 years in the space of 5 years. So things like BERT and so forth, and you know, we're going to come on to the GPT, etc. So it's all around us.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think on that one? Or have you already moved on?
No, I think I agree with what Dawn is saying. You know, it's not like PageRank. If we look at the old like back rub patent and all of that, that's not machine learning. You know, you could technically say it's like unsupervised machine learning, but technically, if I'm a developer who has like, you know, a lot of background in algorithms, I would argue with you and say it's not machine learning at all. It's just like
it's just zip fee and distribution. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
I disagree. Only because I think the definition of machine learning is it's you know, it's crawling through data and refining an algorithm, which is a proxy for votes, really. And it seems to be pretty close to it. What it hasn't got, it's any kind of personalization. So PageRank with personalization is a whole different thing, I would say. But you know,
I mean, no, not really. Like what they describe in the original paper is just a recursive algorithm. It's not inherently machine learning. So machine learning is more like, okay, you know, we don't necessarily know what the outcomes are. We have labeled or unlabeled data tell us what the outcomes are. PageRank is like.
But I think when they come out with a score for all of those pages, they don't know that either. So the you know, you can't predict what the PageRank is of a page until you run the algorithm around about 12, 13 times when I tried it.
But that doesn't inherently make it machine learning.
No, because that's just statistical probability.
Right.
That's it. It's like, well, we know that it's Pareto, for instance, 80-20 rule. It's a power law, but it's not machine learning. It's just an actual statistical facts that the 80-20 rule applies, like the zip fee and distribution. Everything is inversely proportional to 1 over its rank, which is kind of what PageRank is. So that's just mathematical statistics. When you start to add in lots of other algorithms and work together with it, such as learning to rank and all the bandit algorithms now, etc., that's where you're starting to bring more and more advanced machine learning into the mix. So
you said bandit algorithms a couple of times. So expand on bandit algorithms.
No, it's not bandit. It's bandit algorithms. Bandit algorithms.
Oh, bandit algorithms.
Yeah,
okay,
bandit
expand on bandits. Sorry.
So follow a really big person on this is Martin de Rijk. Yeah, he's an IR professor in the Netherlands. Massive. And they're doing a huge amount of stuff with bandit algorithms and learning to rank, and also with recommender systems. And actually, Spotify use bandit algorithms. Basically, the user provides implicit or explicit feedback, and ultimately the system then starts to take rewards, etc. And almost like a one-arm bandit, it starts to work in favor of the likely probability of happening. Okay, and that is machine learning. So
then it's reacting, but that's the personalization part of a machine learning algorithm, because it's it's going to respond differently to me to the way it does to you.
But I think what's going to happen as well is if you take the personalization out of the mix. I know we have these huge debates in SEO about whether click-through rate, etc., is a ranking factor, but certainly in terms of feedback, when they use the quality rates, etc., to work out whether something's working or not, or how far they are off, if you like, a gold standard, that's where the likes of human in the loop and bandit algorithms potentially come into the play. Yeah, so that's outside of recommender systems and personalization. That's just for search results, for instance.
Okay. All right. So in that case, what are the main AI elements within the core algorithm? So let's stay away from images and stuff like that. Let's go to keep with our traditional sort of 10 blue links. Maybe not that traditional, but what do you think are the main bits where AI is really coming to the fore? Mike, maybe you want to go with that one.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've always used is natural language processing. All of that is based on machine learning and so on. And so, everything that we're talking about with respect to natural language understanding, things that we're talking about with BERT, all of that stuff is core ML work. And then when you start talking about, rank brain and the query refinements and so on, all of that is machine learning as well. So, and you said you don't want to touch on the image part of it, but
I'm happy to talk about it. I was just going to do it in a little bit later. That's all. But you can jump in now. That's fine. Yeah.
No, I just want to touch on it. Computer vision, you're seeing more and more of that type of stuff start to happen in the SERPs, like just the way that they're understanding and being able to say, rank and identify what's going on in images. And also when we're seeing, now you're seeing like with the videos, it's like this section is related to your query. That's text to speech. That's also to some degree, speech to text. That's also to some degree using computer vision as well. So I think that there's a lot of places where this is popping up. It's just that like core PageRank is not necessarily it.
Okay. All right. So on that basis then, to either of you really, as SEOs, our world is usually, a little bit of some technical stuff and then some content writing and these traditional things. How can we influence those machines as SEOs? What do we need to do differently as SEOs than we were before those algorithms were starting to become so much to the fore, particularly the NLP stuff, which has been coming in for about 6 years now, I think.
Dixon, can I just backtrack very slightly to that question? For me, other areas where they're using elements of machine learning in search are spam detection, classifying and labeling, for instance, guest blog posts, etc. Crawling, definitely. I spend a lot of time watching crawl patterns, and definitely crawl scheduling has got some elements of supervised and semi-supervised training in there for sure. And indexing.
Canonicalization.
Yeah, indexing, canonicalization, personalization, discover. Definitely. I mean, it won't all be machine learning. There'll always be some element of, I don't know, somebody tweaking things slightly, but I think a lot of things will just be pretty much at scale, semi-supervised or unsupervised.
So then kind of back onto the same question then is what do we do differently in a world of machine learning? Now that we finally are getting to the hang of understanding that Google's results are dynamic, Google is dynamic, Google the thing is, how do we act differently in that world?
Personally, I think we embrace it. I think we realize that quality is all important. If you aim for the highest quality you possibly can, then it's only going to come out with, the outcomes are only going to be good, regardless of whether there's machine learning or whether there's not machine learning. Hopefully, over time, the signals around quality will continue to be improved, and I think we should embrace it really, and take it on board.
So what I want to add on there more specifically is I think named entity recognition is something that we should all be embracing pretty heavily. And there's a variety of tools to support this, in the data science world, where you can just say, okay, here's a piece of content. What are entities related to it? Of course, I believe in links, you guys are doing some stuff.
I'm delighted that you said that, because at the moment we're returning 5 times as many entities per page of content as Google's NLP is. So Mike, you've just done my sales job for InLink for the day. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I mean, because it's something that we've been using for a while, and we see a lot of value in that. So not just from like the content that you're creating, but also when you're thinking about the relationship between links, when the entities are relevant on both sides, we see that there's an improvement in ranking. And it's also true when you're doing like 301 redirect. So, one of the things that we always do when we get a new site is we look to see what are the broken links that are pointing, or what are the broken link targets? Like what has hundreds or thousands or millions of links pointing to it that those pages are now 404s. Well, one of the things that we do is if that page is no longer in the client's database somewhere, we will look in the Wayback Machine and then determine the entities related to that page, and then do that redirect target to something that has the closest entity matches possible. Because we all know that if you just do some sort of like blanket 301s, that value doesn't pass in the same way.
Yeah, because the context has got lost in that page.
And in actual fact, a negative impact sometimes, because you're actually associating other terms with a document and therefore partly diluting the strength of the target, if you like.
Exactly. And so, thinking about things from that perspective, but again, the content itself is really valuable. So one of the things that we do is, like, if we're targeting a new keyword with a new page or even an existing page, we look to see, okay, what are the entities that are happening across the pages that are ranking, and then we use that to inform the content that we're going to create. So it's not just the entities, also looking at topics and so on, and leveraging that to think of your optimization in that way. And the way that we describe it is like your keywords have keywords, and so those keywords can be those topics, it can be those entities, and the more you weave that in, the more likely your page is going to rank for whatever those keywords are.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what and Inlinks does exactly the same in that it tries to, and you maybe you're using my data in the background, but the interesting thing when you get back those we build a knowledge graph of the top results on search, and we do entity extraction on those. So we've got there, but we don't necessarily have the magic and +1 factor. What we're trying to do then is getting the best of everything that Google's already sort of sitting there thinking is good. I think it's still, really good content, then has that one extra thing that the others can't copy as well.
Information gain.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, good.
Massive.
So Jenny's saying that someone's got a really cool haircut, and I'm guessing that's me. So thanks, Jenny. She's also asking, what do you think some of the signals around quality are? So, I guess let's keep it at AI. What's an AI signal of quality? What can a machine interpret as quality?
Do you want me to?
Either of you. You just dive in, guys. There's only three of us.
Sorry. I'm trying to like balance it out. So tell me to show up at any point. So definitely information gain, which we just touched on. That we've always talked about the old skyscraper SEO. Well, in a way, that's information gain. So, you find what does the competitor have? How can I add extra value? Where's the value? Where are the additional features? Focusing, if you like, on features as much as the words on a page, if you like. So if it's an e-commerce page, what extra value can you add? And can you add? How many ways can you meet the informational need that might possibly be wanted? And definitely there is something around who the author is and detection of expertise that's going on. Again, swinging back to the chap that I met, that was the machine learning data scientist, if you like, looking at author detection. It's very easy now for them to pick up on who's actually writing things. Maybe not specifically, but there'll be stuff around quality. And I know that Bing have recently said in a webinar or an interview that they are able to tell whether somebody is an expert, if you like, on a topic and who they are in the space.
Cool. Well, maybe then if they can see that, then maybe they're going the other way with there's a very quite well-known algorithm. It's in the Yoast plugin somewhere, the Flish Kincaid algorithm, which is the readability. And that's an algorithm that winds me up really, because
the Flish reading score,
because the better your score, the younger the kid is that can read the content.
But there's it's supposed to write content for a 9-year-old, unless you're writing for academia. Then of course you can't do that. So,
but this is why I hate it, because machines are not so good yet at reading at the age of a 30-year-old or a graduate leaver. But so the prevailing logic is making it relatively easy to read so that the machine can read it. But that's also dumbing down the internet and also sending humans to their common lowest common denominator.
Sorry, go on, Mike.
No, Dawn, finish your thought, please.
You know what? I think sometimes we overestimate search engines. We really do think that they're better than they are, because somebody's throwing out, automatic machine generated text, we presume that things are so far forward. Search engines are still not perfect. The precision is still absolutely appalling sometimes, and this is well known within their own industry. So I think we as SEOs still need to give clues, and we still need structure, for instance, in writing, etc. So
yeah, but my point,
overestimate them.
Dixon, hold on. Let me jump in, because the point you made, I think, is a really interesting one to examine. Because I can tell you definitively, in every single content audit we have ever done, when we compare page value, which is the metric that GA will give you, that's basically saying, like, you know, here's the dollar value of this page based on how it's contributed to conversions and so on. Whenever we compare that with the reading score, it's always the pages that have the easier readability that generate more conversions. And so, like, even if we're talking about academia, it's always those pages. And so it's a don't make me think thing. You know, I don't care if we want to, like, be high-minded about content. Like, what is the goal of that content? If the goal is to drive conversions, then dumbing it down is fine. And if ultimately,
but what if that goal is to try and make somebody more intelligent and think deeper about a problem?
Then that's fine. That's fine.
You're probably not going to rank an awful lot.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the content that's going to rank. It's not necessarily the content that's going to make you money. So if you're just trying to write a book,
exactly.
If you're just trying to do academia, fine. Write the blocks of text and white papers and all that. Me and Dawn will read them, and that's it. But if you want to reach a broader audience, then you have to dumb it down. That's just the reality of it.
You know, the government website, the UK government website, have a specific page on their site saying, why do we write in simple terms? We write for a 9-year-old. Because after the age of 9, apparently, people don't actually add that many more words to their vocabulary, even as adults. So, you know, also bear in mind, not all content is designed to rank for millions of keywords. Sometimes you can have a great piece of content which gets absolutely loads and loads of visitors, and it's not SEO optimized hell. Just an amazing, thought-provoking piece of work that has been shared very well, and it's an opinion piece. Opinion pieces aren't necessarily going to rank. They're to engage an audience and use like a stock and flow, but I'll bet you that piece gets absolutely loads more links than something that's optimized to hell and built for SEO. So then you use the internal link equity to take advantage in that way.
Okay, you've got to stop for a second because your CPU's got to catch up because there's a bandwidth thing going on for a second there, but you'll be fine now. It's just you just needed a second there to come back. I want to just go while we're here. That's all right. I want to just check from David. Have we got any questions that came in? That I saw another one from Jenny.
Sure, there's a follow-up from Jenny saying, how do you think EAT fits into this?
Okay, expertise, origin, and thrust. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dawn already kind of touched on this, where she's saying that they can identify authors and they can map it to the expertise and so on. I don't know. I think Dawn can speak more on this one, but I think it's just kind of inherent in a lot of things that we've already talked about.
Okay. All right. I'm going to jump onto a slightly...
Truth on that point that Jenny just made. You know, did you see the other day about the fact check thing that's just come out, where you can apply to be a fact... to say your piece of work has fact checked or whatever. So, for instance, in your money or your life areas, truth is very important. And also Google have said, I think, that they're starting to implement BERT more to understand whether something's fake news, etc. So I think the more you can be accurate and cite your sources, there's a reason why people cite in academia, for instance. And that's to say, hey, you know, other people have the same view and it's peer reviewed. So I think all of those things add into the mix.
Okay, I want to move slightly to a different place now. The Guardian the other day put an article up. They're using the new GPT thing that's out there, GTP3. That's it. Yeah, that's for those that are listening and haven't heard about it. I suggest you go to Guardian and look for "Robot wrote this article." And David, I don't know if we can put the article out that we're talking about for anyone that wants to see it. But basically, put in a couple of words and the machine goes and writes an article. And until you look at the article in depth, it looks pretty much like it's a human being that's written the whole thing. So I guess the question is, how good was that article? And is that something that, well, I'm sure it's something that SEOs will use. Whether it's a good idea they use it is a whole different thing.
We're using it now.
You're using it already, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So I love GPT. I love it as a technology. It's not the only one out there. You know, there's a variety of transformer technologies for generating text in this way. But the natural language generation space has completely exploded in the last like 2-3 years. And it was like 2 years ago.
Since birth, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like 2 years ago at Tech SEO Boost. I was like, yeah, you know, maybe 5 years from now, we'll have consumer ready text generation. I was completely wrong. It's been that way for 2 years now, right? And so that article is kind of like misleading, because I think the methodology in that article was that they generated text like 18 times and then they pulled the best parts from it. But you know, the way the technology works is basically you provided a prompt, and then it, based on all the text that is ingested and processed, it predicts the next word that will come in the series, and then uses that. Exactly, and it uses that to generate these documents, and it's actually really good. GPT-3 is mind-blowingly good. People have been using it to like have it write code and generate products and so on. It is a really, really good technology, but it's not perfect. It's certainly not perfect. You know, what we tried to do is generate like an SEO glossary, and we fine-tune the model based on we like snatched copy from Moz and basically everything that ranked well for all the glossary terms that we wanted. And then we gave it a prompt like, what is anchor text? And it couldn't do it well. But in certain domains, it actually can work very well in generating copy. And, you know, there's a lot of tools out there already. There's one called InferKit, which is effectively an API. And it also has a UI where you just give it a prompt and you say, how many words do you want? And it'll do it. I think realistically where we're at with this technology right now is that, it's good for first draft content. It's not completely supplanting anybody's editorial team anytime soon. But the thing to think about from an SEO perspective is that once people are good enough at it, you know how we are as SEOs, they're just going to run it on everything. Like everybody's going to have
spinning, 30 million. Spinning. It's like just a modern day article spinner.
Which we started doing 20 years ago. So
yeah, exactly.
Right, but the problem is that it's easily detectable. Like
exactly. There'll be anomalies, and there'll be a pattern in those anomalies.
Exactly.
And all Google has to do is just fight fire with fire and just turn up the detectors, and he'll start to realize, like you can tell when somebody's contributing guest blog post, it will say that automatically created, not blah blah blah. Even just off of just a few iterations with their own machine learning systems.
Yeah. So like there's libraries out there like Grover that are just for detecting generated content and so on. So it's like it would be very trivial for Google to add that to the algorithms and determine whether or not something is spam. But what I'm interested in is this Dan Brown. What I'm interested in is this idea of creating perfectly optimized content. So if we can use what's currently ranking to fine-tune the model and then generate the content, what then becomes the differentiators between sites? If like everybody can easily generate this content, are we then just completely back to links? Or how are they going to approach it? Because if it becomes the type of thing where anyone can do it easily, everyone's going to do it. So that's where I see where the problem is going to become, and Google's going to have to be like more aggressive about determining this stuff.
Do you know something? I think it will actually come down to rareness, as in other areas of IR, rareness, almost like looking at a kind of an old TF-IDF model, the element of rareness. So actually, I think this kind of automated content could potentially become the majority, or depending on how many SEOs take a grip of it or how many companies do. And I think then the elements of rareness will be what makes people rank better.
And that's what I was kind of getting at when I said, once we've done all the best of all the other ones out there, how do we get that information gain with something unique out of there? And very early information retrieval mechanisms definitely looked at not the common links, but the one that stood out. It was
it's the same with the Zipfian distribution notion. It's literally the Zipfian distribution. It's everywhere, in links, in content, in everything. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt then. But
no, that's absolutely fine.
And I think it'll be the same with this content. Rareness will be the big thing.
So it's and so it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. And I mean, there's for anybody that does any online courses, like proper from university ones, when I did my MBA, they used, every time you put some content up to submit, they used a system called Turnitin, I think, which is trying to check for whether you've been ripping off the internet for your work. So of course, any system like Google is going to use a version of Turnitin that's going to check for that duplicate content, you would assume or hope. But whether the machine learning stuff,
are they though? Like duplicate content works so well.
It does.
But you know what? No, it doesn't, Mike.
It does though. I can show you like 30 e-commerce sites.
Yeah, but they're not
duplicates. 80% of their content.
But they're not duplicates. There's a difference between near duplicate, similar, and duplicate. If something's exactly the same, word for word, literally, then fair enough. But e-commerce sites mostly they differ in some way. They change, they're dynamic, etc. And I think we all. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, by the way. Been contradicting.
No. I like the, it's the first time we've done it. We've had a proper debate. This is much better than everyone agreeing.
You know something in local SEO and local search, all these directories, etc. Seriously, that is not duplicate content, because the minute you add proximity and dynamism into the mix, that page is different to that page, and nearness makes a massive difference as well. And I think we're all like paranoid about duplicate content. And I don't think we all fully know it. When something literally is a snapshot exactly the same, then fair enough, that is a duplicate. But a page that has an extra bit of value, although that might only 10% value, that's not a duplicate content.
So I think that Mike's point though is not unfounded. There is a very well-known SEO who's doing very well on the search engines, and by hearsay, I won't put their name in there, but they are doing well on the search engines, and people are saying it's my content that's up there. It's my content that's up there. Now, it may be snippets of their content.
But they add a bit more value, or they pull pieces together, which is curation.
Yeah.
I mean, curation is really just a form of stitching other people's content together. This is a list of events, but that kind of content does do really well because you've added a gazetteer, a curation and navigation point of other people's stuff, which is what that other person does.
So then that becomes a definition of duplication then, really? Content, really.
No, you've curated. Curation is a great way of getting traffic. Top 10 this, top 30 that. That's curation, even if you take the 10.
I don't think that's what Dixon was talking about. I thought he was talking more about like Neil Patel and how he just steals everybody's content.
Neil, I'm so sorry, mate. I'm so sorry. But I blame Mike. I'm not responsible for what he says on here. Well, possibly I am, but whatever. Anyway, apparently there's some kind of conflict in the industry.
And Jason is right there. Jason Barnard just chipped in. Exactly that. That point is literally if you have 98% exactly the same, but each serves a different town, it's serving a different entity. In actual fact, if you 301 redirect it, and I've just done this as an experiment, if you 301 redirect a neighborhood to a town, it fails miserably, simply because these are very near, but not exactly the same. So he's right on the entity thing. He's right on the intent thing.
Okay. Okay, let's move on before I get myself into hot water with Neil Patel. So and go on. So
And Mike as well.
Yeah,
Mike
I know. Well, I'm going to blame him. I'm going to blame Mike. I know.
Go for it.
Mike.
Everybody blames me.
Anyway, it's not as if that's he ranks very, very well. So it proves still at a certain point anyway. So
No, I mean what he does has value to some people. It's just not.
Yeah. So let's go a different way. Let's go away from machine learning, or well, not necessarily away from machine learning, but away from the traditional search as we see it, and start going back to our own websites. A couple of years ago, I remember James Murray from Bing getting very, very excited in his presentations about, chatbots being the next big thing, and intelligent chatbots. And I've tried them. I've tried to sort of play with them and try to get them to be useful, but I haven't really found anything that I can see as useful either as when I tried to program myself, disaster, but then that's, I blame myself for that one. But I haven't yet been to a website where I felt confident enough to interact with a machine that is giving me enough help really for me to not have to phone up the operator, basically.
They're just not there yet. That's all it is.
Do you think they're coming? Have you seen any examples of them working well?
God, absolutely. Mike, do you want to go first so that I don't speak? But I will tell you something in a minute. Yeah.
No, I would just say that, I agree with Dixon. I haven't seen any like super impressive chatbots in the wild, but there are things that we do specifically with Dialogflow that has been a great time saver for us. Like we don't necessarily, we don't necessarily use it like as a chatbot on our site, but we've used it as things like to scale outreach. So like overcoming objectives. Yeah, and it's great to like be something that stands between a actual person and the user to like answer some of those quick and easy questions and so on. But as far as just like throwing up a chat bot and expecting that you're never going to need customer service again, I don't think that's realistic right now.
No,
okay, so it'd be a good thing then is to have for a customer service representative, and somebody's asking a question and it suggests 3 different answers, but it's the customer service person that sees that rather than the other person.
Do you know the chap on Twitter that I always refer to, Mohammed, who does a lot of research on conversational agents and how to actually improve performance with conversational agents, i.e. chatbots. And he found a huge performance increase by adding what you've said, clarifying questions. Because when you actually give people options, or you say, can you tell me if you meant this, for instance, massively improves. I mean, ultimately, you're right, nothing's there yet. But if you remember the first mobile phones, they were huge bricks, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, look at that fool with a huge brick on the tube." Now we wouldn't dream of not having a mobile phone. So they're just early stages for me.
I suppose they'll get sophisticated around about the same time as Cortana or Siri or Alexa gets sophisticated, and then they're not.
Terrible. They're absolutely terrible. The other day, my husband said "okie dokie dokie" to me, and it actually chips in with the definition of abracadabra. Seriously, I swear to God. And what they do as well is they interrupt each other in different rooms. I've got one in the conservatory and one in the lounge. And when you speak to one, the other one answers. It's really bad.
Well, so I banned them from our house, but it doesn't really matter because we're running around with iPhones and with microphones and God knows what's. We mention something in the house, and the next time we do anything, there's something's popping up. So somebody's listening to me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we're all technically cyborgs now, anyway.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if that's good. I was going to try and end on the sort of the positive aspects of AI on society, and say, well, let's say that this all goes well, because I'm sure there's plenty of ways we can say how this is all going to go badly, but let's say this does go well, because and we find that AI not just on on these things, but I've got my mate down the road. He's got an AI machine that picks strawberries. It basically goes through fields and picks the right strawberries and gets the right ones and stuff. He goes all around the world installing these machines around the place. Well, he would until COVID killed the whole traveling thing. So there's AIs coming in everywhere. And I saw Boston Robotics, those guys with the robots that are running around, doing stuff for Amazon. It looked like, to being their packers and stuff. So let's assume that we figure out how to tax the machines so that we actually we don't have all the money going to the people that own the AI, and that we don't starve the rest of the world. That in a real world would mean that we potentially have a lot more free time. And possibly a universal income so that people can do other things. Does AI mean that we're going to have to change our personal definitions of what's a meaningful life? This is my philosophical question to end the session.
Dixon, I'm sorry, but we have to address something before we get to the positive part of it.
Okay.
And I just moderated a panel on this yesterday. There is a big issue as far as like racial bias with AI that needs to be overcome before we get to that point. Okay. And what I mean by that, and I think there's three big components of it, like data sets. There's not enough data sets that reflect
bias. And gender bias. Just the whole, because everything's biased.
Absolutely.
The whole system is biased.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with the data sets. Like if you think about if you go to Siri and you ask it to say like a non-Anglo-Saxon name, it can't say it. And that's just completely ridiculous. Like, why is the data set not being trained on everyone's names? Also, the people that are building it. There's not enough, people of color or of varying genders that are contributing to these things. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed whenever we talk about this stuff, bringing that awareness so that gets fixed.
I think we've got to start with Wikipedia for that one, because the problem is that Wikipedia is being written by people like me.
It's not by people like me. It's hardly got any authors, Dixon. It's a non-profit making organisation with no cash. And in some countries, they've got hardly any authors. So,
but the data that's being taken out of it, the machine learning is starting with that as a seed set, and so it's understanding Brighton Pier, which no one cares about, but not the one in Addis Ababa that is used by millions of people every day. Or I don't know if it is, but it's coming up with entities that in itself distorts the world, regardless of the people's side of things. Everything is being distorted because the world is being written by the ones that are writing it. So,
it's just like history. Like history is always going to be biased by the people that won, right?
Yeah.
And so if that's what's being fed into this stuff, it's going to reflect and amplify.
There are more data sets now. I mean, there are data sets emerging all over the place. It's whether they're trustworthy. That's the issue. I think Google also said that they're going to try and use other data sets, aren't they, as well? I mean, if you look on Kaggle, look at how much data is actually being added onto there. So I think that they need, as you said, more diverse data, more diverse writing. Look at the work of Ricardo Piezza Yates, who talks about bias on the web. It's true. There is a huge bias just generally, and it's implicit.
I did an article on knowledge bias on the internet as well, which is it's really interesting to see. Sorry, Mike, carry on, go on.
But let's just assume we solve all that. Yes, the world gets to be a better place. Like I read an article about how self-driving cars and trucks is going to kill truck driving. I think that's fine. Truck driving sucks. Like people have more time to do something that is more interesting to them, not just like more interesting in general. And like you said, it gives us more leisure time. One of the things that machine learning AI is going to always have difficulty with, as far as I can tell, is being creative. And so the more that we have the opportunity to like not be doing menial tasks and be creative, and the more that it can be used to solve humanity's problems, the more we can do things that enrich us. And it just gives more power to the arts, which has just like been so under respected and utilized and represented for so long. So I think it does give us that opportunity.
My only concern is that, I mean, like everybody else, I work too many hours. I don't have enough leisure time. It almost feels like everything's always on. It almost feels like we're working more and more and more now than less and less and less, because we're trying to compete with things that are automatic and programmatic, and trying to keep up with things that are automatic. So I think the main concern is like to make sure that we do use it positively and don't actually end up being faster and faster on the mouse wheel.
It's a difficult thing, though, isn't it? It's a difficult thing, though, because we're conditioned to get up and work at something. And it may be that we've already gone past that point because economics is built on consumerism, when you've got to keep on consuming for capitalism to keep on working. And probably we built enough aeroplanes, 50 years ago, but we only found out when with COVID that we had too many of them, So, it's only when we stopped that we realized just how much we were wasting things in the world. We've just kept on going and going and going. So I wonder whether we are going to have the ability to stop and relax, and or whether we'll just carry on working until we die, just because that's how we're built.
Because we're constantly getting emails. We're constantly, did you see the Social Dilemma documentary that was on, that was by some ex-Silicon Valley people? I'm not against social media at all. I think that in its rightful place, it's a really positive thing. But I think
it's good for live streaming on Twitter, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But it can be addictive. There is that element of addiction. I mean, we're all constantly checking notifications, opinion, etc. So I think we have to always be mindful of that and try to get balance.
I think David's comment is sad,
but probably true. Yeah,
it could be. I mean, wow, that is wow. That's all I got.
It's interesting. Okay, David Bain, have I missed out any big questions that we should be pulling in, or should I wrap things up here? I
lot of great interaction
forever, although I could talk with you guys for hours, but after a while, I probably will tire everybody out, or we'll tire the audience out. But are we missing anything important?
Yeah, the chat's been really great. It's been.
You probably need to turn on your microphone there, David.
I can hear David. I can hear David.
This is our producer, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. This is the guy that just makes sure that everything does tickety-boo.
Okay. So, Dixon,
no, you're still very, very quiet.
Okay. Don, you can hear me.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to ignore David until he gets his microphone on.
Okay.
Someone else has some noise, haven't they?
Dixon, you're just talking over him.
Dixon, Mike and Don can hear me okay. So,
now. So
it's you, Dixon. That's the bottom line.
David, why don't you finish things up for me?
I'll tell you what. I'll just mute Dixon for a second there. Okay, so Dixon's gone away, so he can carry on just moving his mouth, and I'm not sure what he's saying, but it was just in relation to what Dixon was saying there. Any questions being missed at all? There's a lot of great comments going on in the chat. It was the kind of topic I think that provokes conversation, as opposed to many questions. But there was a lot of conversations going on in the chat as well. David Taylor, thanks so much for your contribution. Jenny, really appreciate you starting things off. And it was nice to see a live comment on Twitter as well. Kind of Jake mentioning, I think Mike's has a great point about uniqueness cycles away and authority dictates. So that was great having a live comment there on Twitter there as well. But I also wanted to say a special thanks to Jason.
I can hear you again now.
Okay, I'm going to...
On that point though, Jake, authority is uniqueness. I think you're pretty special if you've got that level of authority. So you kind of are unique. Sorry,
Yeah, Jenny's saying Dixon's funny muted. I should do that more often. I just want to finish off quickly by saying also thank you to Jason Bernard. Jason was a wonderful guest on episode 2 on this particular show. And the episode was called "What Schema Matters," and the Knowledge Panel show. You should check out that episode. Jason also sent an email out to his audience. So hi, if you're watching this, from Jason, and thanks so much, Jason, for sending that email out. You can check out Jason and his wonderful work in schema over at calicube.pro. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So thank you, everyone, and back over to you, Dixon.
Hey, real quick. I just want to say Knowledge Panel is a fantastic name for this. Obviously, I love double entendres, so shout out to y'all for coming up with that one.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm sure that I'm going to get done for splitting hairs by some machine learning algorithm at some point. But I do like the idea of just diving into one aspect of things for a while, and rather than jumping through 20 different ideas in the space of 40 minutes. So, guys, I'm assuming that David has covered all the important things for this. Will get up on the InLinks blog. It just leaves it for me to say, Dawn and Mike and David and the audience, thank you ever so much for coming in, guys, and thanks for another time at the Knowledge Panel. Brilliant.
Thank